Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's make dua inshallah before we start. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa shafi'ina wa habibina wa Maulana Muhammad wa barik wa sallam. Allahumma rabbana yassir wa la tu'assir wa tamam bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Tonight inshallah we want to continue with our topic on death and inheritance. Last we spoke about the grave and the condition of the grave and the importance after kafan, meaning after we have dressed the deceased for burial, we have dafan, burial. But there are two things that comes with the burial and associated with the burial. It is the janaaza along with burial. And tonight, inshallah, we want to take a look at some of the important aspects concerning janaaza, because that comes next. And we understand the urgency for janaaza. We did discuss that last class. Now we're going to look at some of the things that we have to know about janaaza that sometimes, we take it lightly, or sometimes we just attend because of feelings or emotions or because you want to show we face, as you would say. But really and truly, what is the importance of a believer, a Muslim, brother, family members, believers, attending to the janaaza of a brother or sister? What is their role and responsibility when it comes to janaaza? And that means there are many people who will even attend to janaaza and will not even understand the importance of being prepared for janaaza. When you are there and you say, I don't have wudu. I don't have no wudu, so I cannot do what? Perform janaaza. And we take it lightly. This aspect of janaaza, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abdul ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala, he says that ilbisu min thiyabikum al-bayda'a فَإِنَّهَا خَيْرٌ ثِيَابُكُمْ كَفِّنُوا فِيهَا مَوَاتِكُمْ. One of the first things that we look at is that when we are talking about kafan is that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, he says, and dress yourselves in white. Those who are alive, referring to everyone, the best form of dress is white clothing. And also kaffinu, make the kafan, the dress of the deceased, the dead, also white, as the best form of dress also for the deceased. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam also tells us concerning that dress and the aspect for janaaza is that whilst this dress, it should also be la taghalu fil kafan. Do not become extravagant in kafan. Don't try to get expensive cloth to do janaaza, to dress, do kafan with. And فَإِنَّهَا yuslabu sari'an, that cloth is going to become what? Ruined. It's going to rot. It's going to be out of any use once it goes into the kafan in the form of dress for the deceased. And this is two important aspects, that when we go to and attend the janaaza, we see the person dressed in this piece of cotton cloth that we usually use, and it's white, and you say what? People ask questions, why and why is this? This is main core and the reason why the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us is very simple. There's no need for exaggeration and dressing like other people would dress their deceased for their burials and preparation for their actual rites and rituals for their different types of things. Some people would say they would prefer to dress an unmarried person in a wedding gown or something like that. In Islam, the dress of the kafan is simple, very straightforward for both male, female, old, young. It doesn't matter respect of the age. Kafan is kafan. And that is the way one would dress, as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has instructed us in the hadith and tells us clearly, this is the dress for burial. What is important with all of this is that we look at it, this janaaza is what? According to the Sharia, Janaaza, Salatul Janaaza is Fardhi Kifaya. it is compulsory on a substantial basis. Unlike salah, which is fardul ayn. Fardul ayn means that it is compulsory on an individual basis, that everyone has the responsibility of performing their salah. And everyone will be held accountable for their own salah. As opposed to fardul kifaya, one such act is janaaza, which is compulsory on everyone. But if some does the rites of the janaaza, which is compulsory, then the others will be absolved of that right. So what they're saying is that if in our community one person dies and some people will attend the janaaza, then the entire remaining community will not be held liable for that act. But if, however, no one attends to this janaaza, and then it becomes now the responsibility of the entire community who will be held accountable for this janaaza not being performed. And that is important as it is. If we fail to do the rites of janaaza, then we all be held accountable. And if everybody thinks in the community, well, that I know this guy going, I know that one going, that going, and everybody think the same way that I think, that he would go, and then no one goes. Because everyone thinks the same way. Then the responsibility is failed. And what is the virtue of it? And that's what we have to come at. You know, why attend janaaza? Why go to janaaza? Why it is that when someone dies in our community, it is upon us as Muslims, our brother or sister passed away, that we should make every effort to attend. And many times we make excuses with what? Our jobs, very untimely, the time is the wrong time to set it for, and all different things, you know, all different type of excuses that we would use to complement, you know, whatever we have to justify as our not attending. Why we will not attend? Either the time is wrong, our job, or something that keeps us away from not attending janaaza. All right? And when we look at what it tells us, is that janaaza is such a responsibility that is fardul kifaya. It is compulsory upon the entire community, except that if it is done by some, it will absolve the rest from that responsibility. But that happens like even in our homes. You know, when we have different chores to do and everybody depend on somebody to do it, and that one person doesn't do it, what happens? Everything fall apart and chaos take place. Similarly, in our communities today, sometimes the rights of our deceased that is duly deserving for them, according to hadith, to get certain merits and rewards, is lacking because the number of people are not even attending janaaza. And even if they do attend janaaza, some of us, we may not be equipped with the knowledge of the rights of what is to be read in that salatul janaaza, and how we should be prepared for the janaaza. All right? So, important to understand in the janaaza, if we follow in our notes, it said, it is only permissible for the mahar woman of the deceased male to see his face. And they are his wife, mother, grandmother, paternal and maternal, sisters, aunts, and granddaughters. Now this is important, because in our community today, everybody wants to see the face of the deceased. And we tell ourselves, you know, well, that is the right that they want to see the last time, you know, we need to see for the last time. You know what, 2 months, 3 months before the person was sick, or sometime before, you know, to visit the person, we never take that right to go and do all of those things. But today the person died, and today's the day's burial, you want to see the person's face. Leave all the other time, but this is the time you want to see the face. All right? Then what is the right that is due to this individual, the mite, the deceased? You are taking away and removing the rights of that individual when you what? When you violate it. So those who are alive will violate the rights of who? The deceased. They can't help themselves. You can do whatever you want to their body. But their rights will be taken away when you do this. And say, well, I have the right. And, you know, give them a chance they never see before. And that tells a very long situation and circumstances that surround our lives today. Because it's only absolutely like normal and okay for us to do this. But really and truly, according to the Sharia, it is only allowed for these people to see and to view the face of the person. Similarly, only for the mahram, males should view the face of the deceased female, and they are her husband, father, grandfather, brothers, uncles, sons, and grandsons, etc. This is the line and relationship that the people who cannot marry her, and likewise in the other way around. All right? So, here, it is telling us clearly that the entire body of the deceased must be kept covered. Kept covered. And we will question it. Well, what is the dalil? What is the proof? And why? And many people ask questions. Where they get this from? How they get this? And why are you doing this for? And it is all within the rights of what the laws of Salatul Janah is all about. According to the Sharia law, according to Imam Abu Hanifa alayhi rahmah, if you read the fiqh and the laws concerning janais, you will see these rights. You will see these rights. It is not about questioning, it's about learning and understanding. It is about learning and understanding. Because sometimes we try to justify our ignorance. Thinking that, well, why you should do this for? Why it should be like this? Really and truly, because we lack the what? Knowledge of what is right and the rights of the mayit and the deceased, that we lack to show what is the adab and etiquettes for an individual. Sometimes no one wants to barge in on someone while they are what? Changing their clothes. Or they should be what? Have their privacy. Also, the deceased also have a right to their privacy. To their privacy. So, in both cases of a male and a female mayit, the deceased, the face of the deceased should not be kept open after the kafan is put on, meaning the clothes, shrouding of the deceased. After the shroud, the entire body now remains covered and away from the view of the entire public. All right? It may be hard sometimes to swallow it, or for us to accept this, but this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us guidance upon. And it is permissible to recite Quran after the ghusl has been performed for the individual. And person has kafan, no problem. Then you can still also what? Recite Quran. It is also shrouded for the burial. Even that time before Janaaza time takes place, and you want to read Quran, it's all well and good. It will be okay. Now, how the Janaaza should be carried. And there are different ways where that we would see in different countries the way and the manner that is done. In our country, most of the times, it is the function of the Janaaza takes place either at the home of that individual deceased, they have relatives, the family, the home, or it may be attended or taken place at the mosque hall. Generally, or in some places like this. But generally, these are the places locally amongst us. In some other parts of the world, they have places close to their grave sites where they actually have a flat area that actually have the Janaaza, or a hall or something that they have their Janaaza taken place. All right? Now, based on that, there will be different ways or assemblies, and the body may be carried from one place to the next, depends on where it is shrouded and so on, and all these different things are also part of consideration. Shrouding may take place in our part of the world, in our country, at the place where at the morgue, as you would say, and then it is transported to the home, and then from the home it is then Janaaza is done, and then from there it goes to the cemetery for burial. All right? Some places it's actually done at the mosque. There are places already prepared for shrouding, and it is done there and dressed there, and then Janaaza is done there, and then go for burial. And it's close proximity of the compound of the mosque itself. All of these things are done in one compound. All right? So it will vary from time and place and conditions or so. So how the Janaaza should be carried? One, if the deceased is an adult, it should be put on the Janaaza and the mayit and be carried on the shoulders of four men. It is makruh to transport. I know this is either you use that box with the handles and to transport the deceased like this. It is makruh to transport the corpse by hearse over a short distance unnecessarily. All right? Use a hearse and just walking across the road, not necessary. All right? You're walking a short distance, couple houses away or a street away, from the actual burial site, it will be not disliked. It will be rather nice to come closer to the sunnah and walk with the deceased, the mayat, to the site of burial. All right? If the deceased is an infant or a small child, it should be carried in the arms of individually by different persons. A baby, transport in the arms of an individual, and exchange as walking on the road. All those who lift and carry the Janaaza, they should recite Bismillah as they take chances in holding or carrying the deceased. All right? When carrying the Janaaza, they may, its head, they may start at its head, shoulders be towards the front. The head of the mayat should be to the front. All right, so you're walking with the deceased, the head should always be in the front direction if you're walking with them. All right? So the deceased, placed in that tray that you'll carry them in, or the box as we would say, and you're walking out in any direction or on the street, wherever it is, the head goes in front. All right? And it is mustahab that the manner of carrying the Janaaza, it is that every person or carrier should carry the Janaaza to the fourth step. All right? To do this, there's a particular Mannan pattern that the person will exchange after every 4 steps, and they will change and move like this until they actually move a distance with the body. Now, this is the actual way it is done. Nowadays, all those things, we actually overlook some of these sunnah. All right? So, in order to achieve that, one will probably carry and lift the front of the mayat for 10 steps. That's the mayat. And then with the right shoulder, change over again, and then to the left, and then to the right front, and they all move 10 steps and change over. All right? For 40 footsteps. All right? And then those accompanying the Janaaza should not sit before it is lowered to the ground. The sick and the weak, they are excused from this. All right? Until the mayat is rest down. All right? It is masnoon to carry the Janaaza hastily, but not in the manner that the body becomes what? Jolted and shaken up. So you're carrying the mayat, it must be what? Very careful in the way it is done. All right? Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, he tells us that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Isra'u bil Janaaza. Hasten with the Janaaza. Fa'in taku salihatan. He says, hasten with the Janaaza. Go with the Janaaza, as not dragging or moving slow, but hasten it with care. Walk with that amount of care. And fa'in takun salihatun fa khayrun. That if this individual be a good person, who the mayat who died is a good person, to qaddimunaha ilayhi, then you're making his forward journey easier and faster for him and better for him. Wa in takun siwa, and if it is the other way around, that this person is what? A bad person, a person who is not in the best of deals in character, then that person, dhalika fasharrun, then that is a person of that bad nature, tadu'unahu an riqabikum. You will be glad to get rid of him from your shoulders as soon as you can. Hadith found in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. All right? So it tells us at a very clear state here that moving with the body, it should be what? At a quick pace, but not jolting the body. And this also comes with, when we have, similar to this, time for Janaaza reach, and we still what? Delaying and waiting for this one to come and that one to reach yet, and they're calling for this one and they're calling for that one. And all of these things, we are clearly told in the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we should not delay, even in the transport and even in all of the things, that if we set a time, we should try to work with that time as best as possible. All right? It is mustahab to follow the Janaaza and not to go ahead of it. Although it is also what? Okay if you walk ahead of the mayat, the deceased. And it is makruh for those accompanying the Janaaza to recite any dua. It is makruh for those accompanying the Janaaza to recite any dua or ayat of the Quran aloud. Softly is okay. All right? They may, however, read La ilaha illallah softly. One should abstain from speaking worldly affairs or laughing and joking whilst transporting or moving with the mayat. Now we're talking about whether you're moving from here, from the place, the morgue, and you're coming home. Usually what happens is that a relative accompanies the vehicle and they come to the home. Normally, either the entire group of people will go to the place from the home or wherever it is, straight to the stand, the Qabristan, where there's a place, a platform where they actually do the Janaaza. So they accompany the body straight to the Qabristan where the platform is, and then they do Janaaza and then go straight to the grave. But what we do is what? Do the Janaaza at home and then travel straight to the grave for burial immediately. You understand the difference there? The difference is that we do it home and then go to the grave, and they will go close to the grave where there is a place prepared for this. Do the Janaaza there, and then do the burial just immediately after it. All right? Now, there are a few things that we must understand when it comes to following some of the rites of Janaaza and the virtues of Janaaza. We recognize the importance of moving with the mayat, the deceased. Then, what about, for example, the virtue, why it is that we should reach to the Janaaza on time, and what are the rights of Janaaza? So the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, he says, Man tabi'a janazatan fasalla alayhi falahu qiratun. That person who would perform the Janaaza, he will get the reward of 1 qirat. وَمَنْ تَبِعَهَا حَتَّى يُفْرَغُ مِنْهَا فَلَهُ قِرَاتًا. And who would follow and be for the time of the Janaaza and also complete the rites up to the point of burial, then that person, he gets qiratan. 2 qirat. Alright? And it is not just talking about qirat. This qirat is considered at the time of the Arabs in the early time. There was a coin called a dirham, called a qirat, 1/12 of a dirham, a qirat. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, this qirat is not just like our qirat, but this qirat, أو أحدهما مثل أحد. It is like the qirat of Uhud, the mountain of Uhud. This qirat is equal to that. The reward in gold. So he's telling us clearly, you get the reward of 2 mountains, that of Uhud, for you attending the Janaaza and the burial. That is the first reward that one will achieve. That is the person who is fulfilling the rite of the Janaaza. Who is fulfilling the rite of the Janaaza, who would go and attend the Janaaza. And in attending this, why he would use this similarity? Why he didn't just mention the word qirat, and then he mentioned that it is in comparison to Uhud, when this is only the value of 1/12 of a dirham. Why? Because this value of this qirat is equal to that which Allah and the Rasul sallallahu is telling us, is that it is in comparison to the heavenly reward that one will receive, the spiritual blessing that one will receive in the value of it. Not just any reward, that you're not getting paid like this, but you're getting paid in the value of this in the life of the hereafter. This is what you're going to get for it. Now, in simple terms, Janaaza that one would attend, not just going for the reward or the benefit of it, but one should attend this Janaaza for a special purpose, and that is the spiritual purpose of Janaaza. The spiritual purpose of Janaaza, and not just consideration that this is my family, or this is my friend, or this is my neighbor, or my cousin, and I must attend. But also, what is the spiritual value of it? One, the Rasul tells us this is a spiritual reward. But from our side, when we attend it, if they see my face, they know at least I attend the funeral. No. We are told clearly that it is something that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says you must attend it with its spirituality, its khushu, its devotion, its sincerity, with that level that you're doing this not just for yourself, but for the sake of your brother or sister, your deceased mayat brother or sister. This is what the reason of going there. And sometimes we would talk and we'd say things, I empathize and I share the same feelings with you and I carry the same emotions and all these different things we would say. But the spiritual aspect of that connection in that Janaaza is yet still not there. Because the purpose of going there is to fulfill the haqq and the right that is deserving for that individual. And hence, our going to that funeral. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he tells us also in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, he says, مَا مِن مُسْلِمٍ يَمُوتُ فَيَقُومُ عَلَى جَنَازِهِ أَرْبَعُونَ رَجُلًا لَا يُشْرِقُوا بِاللَّهِ شَيْئًا إِلَّا شَفِعُوا فِيهِ. That that a person whom, a Muslim, who would attend, who would die, and upon his Janaaza, there will be more than 40 persons who would attend his Janaaza for that person, and that they do not ascribe any partners unto Allah. That person, he will get nothing less than shuffi'u fihi, that he is going to be, or a perfect intercession for him and his forgiveness. Just by at least 40 people attending his Janaaza. This is the saying of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if we know this, then what is our right towards our brothers and our sisters? If we really love them, that they are forgiven. You know, we always say it, may Allah forgive them and have mercy on them. And, you know, one time for Janaaza, what happened to the number in the line? And the number of persons in the line? You know, we should, as a community, recognize that the value that we show to our brothers and sisters, the true love, is that we must make sure that the attendance for the Janaaza Salah is to the best that it can be, for the sake and the love of every single member of our community when they would pass away. That we must ensure that their intercession is granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how is that? When we would attend this Janaaza. And this is the spiritual aspect of it, that we feel in our hearts that there is this desire within me that I want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive this brother and have mercy on him, or this sister and have mercy on her. Then we must do what? Just have this feeling and, you know, Allah will forgive them? No, we have to fulfill the act, that faraid, that Janaaza. Attend it, perform the Janaaza. Because this is the last opportunity you have to do something that will be beneficial to this mite. And what comes before it? Sometimes our job. The timing is wrong. Timing is wrong. We can't give up one day to do something for our brother when they have left this world. To do something that is most important for one person in our community who would have been probably doing something for our community, who is part of our community, who would pray with us, who would be part of our family or general, you know, society as Muslims. But we will not do anything, at least the last rites, so that this person will have this value of their sins being forgiven and the intercession from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just ponder and think, you know, what is this hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying to us? All right? And, you know, in respect to that, when we carry our dead or deceased, you know, there should not be any types of things that we would see other people emulating into their rites and rituals when it comes to the mite and the Janaaza. And that is, you know, sometimes people you see in their different rites and rituals in other religions, they will probably have a mic and music from their religious songs or whatever it will be, and they're playing this and they're following with their mite. Or they'll probably have some kind of flame lit and they're walking with this or moving with this as part of the rituals. In Islam, we don't use flags, we don't use fire, we don't use music to transport or to hurl or to carry as a leading point or focal point in leading our dead. Has no such things. So even if the Mayat make a request that this is my favorite song, and when I die, I want you to carry this song with me and play this song for me when I leave in this house. No. Because he won't have to account for what? That deed. Is the person who what? Playing it, the person who listening to it, and the person walking along with it will have to carry that deed. Because he has no room. His deed cut off when? From the point in time he died. That is it. So the accountability now comes to who? Us who are alive. So all these types of traditions that do not belong to our deen, we should not what? Incorporate them in part of our deen. Even if such requests may be made, such things are not part of the rights of our deen. And so it is also clear by the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in a hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anha. He says that an Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, La tattabi'u janazatu bi sawtin wala narin. Do not wail and cry and bawl and beat up yourself and walk in front of the janaza. Nor should you what? Light any fire and walk in front of the janaza. Alright? Hadith clearly tells us here that these are things that we should not do. All right? And as I mentioned before, there are various views concerning standing up for the Janaaza, the Mayit. So when the body is there, whether we should stand or sit, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did both. He stand at times and he sit at times when the body was. Sometimes he walked in front, sometimes he walked to the back. And it is evident in hadith for all of these. All right? What is most respectable and honorable is that we should also what? Sit after the body is what? Placed down on the at the floor or wherever we have the stand, and then we also what? Sit. All right? For the time for the Janaaza. All right? And there are hadiths to prove both of them. That exists and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. All right? Now, some of the other aspects that we look at in Janaaza is that what are some of the things and the timings for Salah Janaaza, Salatul Janaaza. Salatul Janaaza could be performed at any time. At any time except for 3. When the sun is rising, at Zawal, and when the sun is setting. These are the 3 times that no Salah cannot be performed. At these 3 points in time, no Salah can be performed. Sun rising, Zawal, and setting. Other than these 3, then what happens? Other than these 3, we can perform Salat anytime during the day and anytime during the night. It will be perfect and all right to do that. All right? Now, a person, if they were to be buried and no Janaaza was done for them, talking about the questions before, and then we talk about the Janaaza itself. A Muslim, nobody come and they bury him just like that. Family take him and carry him, bury him in the hole, finish, no Janaaza done. What do we do next? If the person was buried and no Janaaza was done, then the right of what? Janaaza is still there upon the entire community. Then, when and how could Janaaza be done for this person? It can still be done even at the grave, in this condition. And it should be done at least within the first 3 days before the body actually what? Burst. Anytime it after decay reaches the point that the belly swells and bursts, and on average depends on the condition and the country and the temperature, all these things affect the condition for the actual stomach to rupture and to open up. Once it is ruptured and open up, then at that point in time, no more Janaaza can be performed. So therefore, it is an average that within the first 3 days, earlier, always better that it could be done like that. That is if the Janaaza was never done. All right? And in respect to this, if a person, now we're talking about the Salah itself. The next question will come about and arise is concerning a person if he is deaf. And the Imam has the takbir which we'll come to. And he has to recite 4 takbirs, and the Imam only does takbir for what? Raising his hand for the first takbir. How would he know when to make the Janaaza or the change of the du'as in the different takbirs? So he's a deaf believer, Muslim, he cannot hear, but he only can see by what? Indication. He raised his hand once, Allahu Akbar, but for the next 3, what he doesn't hear? A thing. Then what happens? At the other 3 takbirs, what should be done by him? In such a case, the individual should do his first takbir with the Imam and then do his dua and takbir in the limitations of the time that it will take to do each one. And he should take his time. And if, however, when he sees, for example, he's there and the Imam finished before, and he didn't finish yet, then he should try and hasten with his takbirs and finish off before the body is actually lifted off from the ground. That is if a person is deaf. All right? These are some of the things that we would have with people, when it comes to funeral and things that what can we do and what conditions we will deal with such things. All right? Now, we spoke about hastening with the Janaaza to the place where we're going to perform it. Now, concerning the place and the persons who to perform the Janaaza. Now, we talk about place, the person to perform the Janaaza. Who is best and what type and condition should there be? If a person whom has the rights to perform the Janaaza, and there are a number of them. 1, the best person should be the leader, ruler, if we are in an Islamic state, then the leader of that state, or governor, whoever it should be the first person to lead that Janaaza. And if he's not there, then it goes to the imam or leader of the community. And then from there, it will go to the relatives. The closest of relatives should lead that janazah. All right? So there are sequences that you could also use. And also we should also look for someone who is most of righteous amongst us to lead the janazah for us. All right? So it can be done by even relatives, the leaders, and our imam, leader of our community as well. All right? And what about the aspect of people who, the funeral prayer for one who was, that person who is deserving, for example, of punishment. A person, a murderer. A murderer, he dies. He commits a crime, he kills somebody, he dies. What about his janazah? A person who commits suicide, what about their janazah? These are rights that you must understand. Even if a person commits suicide, it is not right for any of the leaders to perform his janazah. However, his janazah can be done, but not by someone who is the leader of that community. This is not that the person, his rights is not fulfilled, but this is to show that there's a great detest for such actions of suicide. That no one should what? Do this act, so hence it is an indication to the people so that they would see that it is not the best action, right? Because Allahu Alam, Allah knows the end result of this individual. The end result of this individual. All right? And the person who should offer that prayers, even for that person, should not be the best of the leaders to do that. All right? And in case a person, a child is stillborn, talking about janazah, a child came out stillborn, did not breathe into this world, is there janazah or no janazah? There is no janazah. All right? No janazah for a stillborn baby. All right? The baby is just wrapped and placed into the hole and buried. All right? So there is no burial in terms of janazah and the rites of burial. All right? That will take care of the understanding of the basic things of janazah in respect to some of the questions that one would have at that point in time. And the next aspect of it is that, of course, without a doubt, we already know that janazah cannot be performed in the masjid. And there is the lead in the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell us that as clear as well. All right? Now, just about 10 minutes, inshallah. So let's look at some of the notes now in respect to the janazah salah itself. All right? That's on the end of page 602. It says that janazah salah is fardul kifaya on all Muslims present, and it consists of 4 takbirs. All right? And in these 4 takbirs, there is thana after one, darul after the next one is second, the masnun dua after the third, and after the 4th there is salams. All right? This is the basic order of it, which will come to now and break down. All right? Now, these are said silently by both the imam and the muqtadis, those who are following in this janazah. What is said silent? These du'as. The only thing that is said aloud is the takbir, and the takbir is said aloud by the imam. All right? And the dua, it is for us to recite. There are the farais of this janazah namaz. What is the fard? There's also a fard in the salat, and they are to stand to perform the salah. Salatul janazah, one should stand to perform salatul janazah, except that individual is what? Sick, weak, or cannot stand on the whole. That person then will be allowed to what? Sit. And to recite the 4 takbir is also the next aspect of the fard. All right? And it should be done silently. All right? It is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, and he said that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِذَا صَلَّيْتُمْ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ فَخْلِصُوا لَهُ الدُّعَى. That when you stand for your salatul janazah, make sure that you have sincerity in your dua. All right? This is narrated by Abu Dawud and Ibn Majah. It tells you clearly here that our dua is with ikhlas, sincerity. We should not just think standing there and rushing to stand there and what should happen. You know, when we go for Salatul Janaaza, some people have the habit of either what? Having on their shoes, and some taking out their shoes and standing on the shoes. You know, why? We are standing, we don't know why. So whether you should have it on or stand on it is in connection with being clean. The place that we have to perform Janaaza must be clean, and the clothes that we have on must be clean, and the footwear that we have, that must also be clean. So if we are going to stand on the shoes or have on the shoes, in any of these two, the shoes must be clean. And even if I want a slipper, it still must be clean. Alright? Meaning it's free from filth and all these different types of things. In order to use that. Otherwise, it will do what? Invalidate your Janaaza Salah. It will make it null. Very important. Sometimes, you know, we see it happening, and in a rush, sometimes we don't take into consideration how important that is as well. Right? According to our school of law, Imam Hanifa Rahma, this is an important aspect of the Janaaza, that we must have our footwear clean if we are going to stand and use that footwear. All right? So some of the most known manners of performing the Janaaza Salah, that the body of the mayyit or deceased should be placed with the head on the right side of the Imam, who will be facing the Qibla. First thing, so we place the body, the Imam stands close to the head and the chest area, and on the right side. Right? The Imam should stand in line with the chest of the deceased whilst performing this Salah. And it is mustahab and more desirable to make an odd number of saf and rows, and this is dalil and proof. There is also the hadith that tells us that making 3 rows similar to a person who also having 100 persons, and like the hadith that tells us about 40 people. You know, each one of these hadiths tells us about rows, 3 rows, or it tells us 40 people, or it tells us 100 people. The context of all these 3 hadiths come to the similar point, which is that it removes and puts that person free from sins and brings about the intercession of this individual. So these are amongst the rewards and the benefits in having odd number of rows for our Salah, Salatul Janaaza. All right? And in this Salah, having an odd number of saf or rows, the saf for Janaaza Salah should be close to one another. Not like the Salah for prostration where we have a room to bend down and go into sujood or sijda, because there is no sijda to be made. The fourth is that after the saf or the lines are straightened, the niyyah or the intention should be made. So we straighten our lines, and this is important as well. Salatul Janaaza, the lines must also be straight. And after that, the lines are straightened, the intention should be made. And the niyyah or intention should be made thus: I am performing this Janaaza Salah for Allah behind this Imam. Alright? And this Salah being a dua for the deceased. Alright? After the intention is made, the niyat, the hands should be raised up to the air. And the Imam should say first the takbir, Allahu Akbar, and then the muqtadis, the followers, say Allahu Akbar and raise their hands to the ears and then fold it like we would stand for Salah. Then the Salah is, after this is done by the Imam and the takbir is mentioned aloud by the Imam, the muqtadis softly say Allahu Akbar. Alright? Then fold them under the navel, similar to we do our daily prayer. Alright, and this is for if we are what? I know people place their hand differently. It is mentioned here because of the Hanafi fiqh. Alright, but whichever way you place your hands, all well and good. We have no debate with it. Alright? Then recite the thana softly. And that thana, Subhanaka Allahumma wa tabaraka asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk, which means glory be to you, O Lord, and all praises are due unto you, and blessed is your name, and high is your majesty, and your praise, and elevated, and none is worthy of worship but you. Then the Imam would then recite the second takbir, Allahu Akbar, aloud, and the muqtadi softly, again, Allahu Akbar. But in this case as well, in the second time, the hands should not be raised. The hands should not be raised when saying this, and all subsequent takbir, the third and the fourth as well. All right, the Darul Ibrahim should now be read Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. The Darul, and it means, the translation is there for us to read. Alright? After the Darul, thereafter the Imam should say the third takbir, Allahu Akbar. And in the following dua, then the following dua should be read for the male and the female. Alright? Allahumma ghafir li hayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirina wa kabirina wa dhakarina wa unthana. Allahumma ahyaytahu minna fa ahyi ala al-Islam wa man tawaffaytahu minna fatawaffahu ala al-Iman. And the translation is there, the meaning is there. Alright? And when this is done, then the Imam will do the fourth takbir. But before this, it is also a condition. If it's an old person, then the dua finishes there. But if it's what? A young person. If the deceased be a young boy, then there's this addition to the dua that one would make. That if the deceased is a young boy, then recite the dua along with this above dua. Alright, the above dua. And it's Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan wa ja'alhu lana ajran wa dhuqran wa ja'al lana shaffa'an wa mushaffa'a. Alright, that's if it's a young boy. And then if it was a girl, it's similar dua, but instead of who, it will be ha. Alright? And these are the two duas will be added if that individual is young to the dua that we mentioned above. And then the Imam will now recite the fourth takbir, Allahu Akbar. And after that, thereafter recites the salam aloud twice, meaning that he'll do to the Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the right and then to the left. And the Muqtadi should do likewise. If there's one salam only, what happens? If you just say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and turns to the right, I say, all right, that's it. No, that salah is invalid. It must have two salams for the completion of that janazah. All right? So, at this point, we have to also discuss latecomers, but we'll stop at this point today, inshallah. All right? So, remember those basic masalas and laws that we learned. We'll find them in the notes. All right? And comprehensively, we have learned today the importance of janazah itself. And it's a very, very long process, and we try to shorten it up here today. We do a little précis of it. All right? There are lots of du'as, lots of hadiths that we ought to learn and know about it. If we go into the books of hadith, we look into Abu Dawud, Nisai, Tirmizi, Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari. All of these books, there's a topic called Salatul Janaiz, the funeral prayer. And they will tell you all of the hadiths, every single thing about janazah, and how to prepare for janazah, and what to do for janazah, and all the different things that are makruh, those things that are disliked, those things that are mustahab, those things that are allowed and we should do, and those things that are beneficial, rewarding, sunnah, and practiced by the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You read their hadith, you're going to see these things and the commentary about these things. It's very important for us to go through them. What I did was just a shortcut it. It is not beneficial in the essence of what should be have done really thoroughly, but at least we'll have an idea just of how important it is for us to reach to the point of understanding that janazah salah is not just something we should take lightly, but take seriously and understand that this salah, as well, I didn't mention probably, that to perform the salah, we must also be in the state of ablution, purity, wudu. And for the rites of the janazah, without wudu, you will not have any of these things. You could do all of these acts and no wudu, you still not have janazah. All right, and it's the only salah, even in the presence of water, tayammum will be allowed. If you cannot access the water immediately, tayammum will be allowed, just to allow you the time to perform the janazah on time, if it has commenced. All right? So we stop there today, inshallah. Let's make dua. Allahumma ameen. اللهم انت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.